Linear Dominguez is one of the strongest players of United States of America. He's number 13 of the current classical chess rating. He has over 3000 rating on chess.com and I have defeated him. This is by far the biggest victory of my entire chess career and I am so excited to share it with you. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. And today is a very special video because I have played in Title Tuesday against Linear Dominguez. I mean, not every day you get a chance to play against such a giant, but not only that, I have defeated him as black in my favorite opening, the Philidor defense. I mean, just let's take a look at it. Now, I did beat Alireza Firouzja recently, who is even stronger, but first, that is a bullet game, and second, objectively, that was a completely drawish position, but he just lost on time. But this time, I just crushed my opponent as black, and he is the top, one of the top guys in the world. That was so crazy. My heart towards the end of the game was beaten like absolutely crazy. I can't even express those feelings, so let me show it to you. The game started with e4, of course I play d6, d4, knight goes to f6, knight to c3, and I play e5. That is the starting position of the Philidor defense. Now white can just take it and go into the endgame, which I like to play so much. Instead, Dominguez played knight f3 because, of course, if you're much stronger, much higher rated player as white, you want to attack, you don't want to go into the endgame. Knight d7, bishop c4, bishop e7. There is a very nice and cute sacrifice on f7. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for white at all. Black is better there. So white played castles. Now the main line is rook to e1, but Dominguez started with the move a4 first, which is also a completely legitimate option. I still tried to continue in the same manner. c6, it's like always a very useful move in the Philidor defense. This pawn just controls all of the squares. Now rook goes to e1 and we are back into the main line where white starts with the move rook e1 and then plays a4. I play a5 just to stop that pawn from moving forward. Otherwise, the pawn might be a little bit annoying for me. Now h3, still the main line, and this tricky variation knight to b6. So I temporarily sacrifice the pawn on e5, but if you take it, I'm gonna take the bishop on c4, you take on f6, I take it, the material is equal, but I'm getting a pair of bishops and you're not really happy about that. So the right way is to go away with the bishop. There are multiple squares, but the main line is bishop a2, and that's exactly what Dominguez played here. I'm playing knight to d7, bishop goes to e3, just continuing the development. I take it here on d4. Now all three takes are possible. Bishop, knight, and queen can take. The main line is knight d4. That's exactly what white did. And knight c5. Up to here, I haven't spent a single second of my own time, which is very useful when you're playing blitz, when you just have 3 minutes and 1 second increment. Why? Well, because this is the position from the 10-day opening mastery course, the one I created for you to help you build a complete and holistic lifetime opening repertoire in just 10 days. So I'm well aware of what's going on here and that gives me a huge advantage. Now, you can do the same thing, just 10 days, or of course you get lifetime access if you decide to buy the course. You don't need to complete it in just 10 days. You can do it in your own path. You get access to more than 100 pure value video tutorials, around 100 practical tasks. You can immediately apply the knowledge you get into the puzzles. And of course, the main focus of the course is on real world problems, challenges that you get on your level, not some super grandmaster stuff which you're never gonna get in your games, but really the positions you are gonna get, and you can apply the knowledge you have got immediately in the games you're gonna play. So this is a fantastic offer. You get a complete opening repertoire, cheaper than a single opening course on Chessable or elsewhere. I haven't seen anything like that. You can just visit the website using the link in the description to take a look at the reviews, and the members of the course write about it because they achieved their goals thanks to it. Take a look at the free tutorials available on the website. You don't need any registration, anything, just go to the website and take a look at it yourself. And of course, you have a 100% money back guarantee inside of our 7-day program, so you have absolutely nothing to lose. Now you're gonna learn how to play the Philidor defense against everybody from 1000 to, yeah, Daniel Dominguez himself. 2750 is his classical ELO, 3000 rating on chess.com, and I have used exactly the same line I'm showing you in the course here, and the right move is queen to h5, but for some reason I'm pretty sure Dominguez is so strong that he knows it, but he played the move queen to d2. Now, it's not like a very bad move or anything, but frankly, it loses the opportunity to fight for an advantage as white. Because now I'm just taking on a4. Yes, it feels a little bit risky, but if you know that's the right thing, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. Just go for it. Knight takes, knight takes. And now I'm basically just winning a pawn if you do nothing. But of course, the idea of Dominguez was to take this pawn on f7 and somehow unbalance the position. But I just know that it can be bad for me. I'm getting a pair of bishops here. The position is pretty open, so by any means it cannot be bad for me. Rook takes a4, I'm playing bishop to d7. My opponent goes back to a1 to avoid this problem with c5, discover attack, and then both the knight and the rook are going to be hanging. I'm playing b5, which is my first inaccuracy. Probably I should have started with c5 and bishop c6, just a very normal idea to make sure the bishop is strong on c6. Plays rook a to d1, I'm playing queen to c7. Yet another inaccuracy according to the engine, but I mean, it's a blitz game, it's very difficult to make all of the perfect moves, although my accuracy in this game was 90%, and I was so shocked when I saw it, because I am playing against such a super grandmaster, and getting that level of accuracy was, in a blitz game, was a huge surprise to me. I mean, of course, a pleasant one. Knight to e2. Now I'm playing rook to d8, I'm just finishing my development. Now all of my pieces are taking part in the game. That's great, that's always what you should aim for in your games. Here I'm making a little mistake as well. After bishop f4, I'm playing bishop e6. Seems like it's a good move because I'm opening up my rook, and the bishop is active, but unfortunately he has knight d4 and then my bishop is under attack, so I need to waste another tempo. Apparently it's okay according to the engine, because 94 doesn't really help that much for white, because it's blocking all of the major pieces there, but humanly you're not happy to make two moves in a row with the same piece, so it's something you should avoid. Big thank you to the sponsor of this video, the Chestnut company, which is providing this beautiful Chestnut Evo board for me for the purposes of this analysis. It's extremely useful because you can just analyze all of your games, all of the positions, and save it in the PGN formats to take a look later, which you can never do with a simple board. It has so many interesting and useful functions. I have made a complete review about it, and if you want to take advantage of the special offer and get a huge discount and buy one of the Chestnut products, this is just one of them. They have different ones to offer you depending on your preferences, so if you're interested, just use the link in the description to take advantage of this amazing offer and get a huge discount. Bishop g3. Now I played bishop f6. Well, I thought I'm improving here, but unfortunately, whenever this knight goes away, this d6 pawn is a weakness. My idea was maybe to play bishop e5 and block the entire thing, but I should be very careful with it, because if the knight goes away, I play bishop e5, bishop takes e5, and if I take with the pawn, my rook on d8 is hanging. I'm completely lost. So yeah, it's pretty tricky, but the good thing is this bishop is also attacking that pawn on b2, and if the knight goes away, that would be hanging, and then this little pawn on a5, that would become a huge problem for white, because it's just gonna go forward, and well, good luck trying to stop it. So my opponent plays c3, trying to block the entire diagonal. Queen goes to b6. Now knight f3, just back, attacking this pawn yet again. So I'm playing bishop e7 back, and he goes knight to d4 back. Now, I didn't want to repeat the position, because I thought, well, I'm not really achieving too much on f6 with the bishop, so I wanted to somehow improve my position instead. Unfortunately, I made the wrong decision. I played here rook f8, which is more or less the only mistake. No, there was more mistakes later on, but I thought, makes sense, I'm connecting my rooks. Yes, this diagonal is getting opened, but at least everything is protected now. But the engine is not a big fan. Once again, very difficult to understand that in the blitz game. The most important thing is you remain solid, you don't allow any weaknesses in your camp, because the more weaknesses you have in a blitz game, the more difficult it is to handle it, especially against a very strong player, because he is creating more and more threats and eventually you collapse. That's how it normally works. So in the first place, you want to prevent having a lot of weaknesses. He plays king to h2, just trying to make sure that the king is solid, and then he wants to attack on the king side, because that's a part of the board where he has more pawns. Notice that he has f and e pawns. I don't have those pawns at all, so he wants to go forward on this side of the board, whereas I have more pawns here on the queen side, so my natural plan should be to push the pawns over there. King h8, I just wanted to make sure my king is solid and there are no checks. He played f4, which feels incredibly logical, but the engine, as always, doesn't like it. Now I decide, okay, it's time for me to open up my counterplay as well, because if you don't have any counterplay, that sooner or later you're gonna get into trouble. You always need to have something to play, to create your own threats, not waiting for your opponent to come and destroy you. This is like never a good strategy in chess. My opponent plays knight to f3, and you feel like it's building here. He is building his attack here, I'm pushing my pawns there, and the question becomes who is going to be first one with creating huge threats. And little spoiler here, my opponent is going to be first. He's going to have so many dangerous threats for me, but somehow, even by miracle, I can say I could handle all of that. So let's see. Bishop to e6, well, improving my bishop's position. He plays f5, and I decided to put the bishop on b3, because first, it's a move with a tempo, I'm attacking the rook. And secondly, I can support it with my pawn on the a4 square. That's exactly what happened. And then I can even push the pawns forward and create my counterplay, which I desperately need. My opponent plays bishop to h4. Well, obviously he wants to create some problems for me here. Bishop takes, knight takes, and here I'm making another mistake. I'm playing the move d5. Although, I mean, humanly, especially in a blitz game, it feels logical. You want to go forward, you want to create some difficulties for your opponent. And also d6 pawn, I always felt it's like backward pawns, so I don't really care. I want to go forward, I want to open up the center. The problem, and this is the reason why this move is a mistake, my opponent can play e5 and just push it forward, and now e6, e7 comes with a tempo, and of course I knew that, but I somehow thought that I'm gonna compensate it with my own play. And yes, the engine is not a big fan of it, but in the real game, in the practical game, even against such a monster like Dominguez, I managed to use those pawns. So let's see how I did it. I played here d4, so I'm continuing my plan. He plays e6. Now, of course, e7 is a huge threat immediately, but my idea was to play queen to d6 check. King goes to h1, and now I'm taking here on c3 and attacking the queen simultaneously. So if you take the queen, then at least this e7 move is no longer a threat, and I thought, well, my pawns should be strong there as well. And without the queens also there wouldn't be any checkmating attacks with this knight and so on, so that was a good option for me. That's why he decided to take on c3 with the queen. But I thought it's also good for me, because now I get this b4 move with a tempo. He plays queen e3. I'm playing now rook d to e8. As far as I remember, the engine always says to put my queen on e7, but I somehow remembered that the queen is a bad blockator, so I didn't want to use the most powerful piece I have just to block this one little pawn, even though a very strong one. Apparently, that wasn't the case here, but I played rook e8 anyway. So my opponent played queen to g5, and now I played queen to d4, which feels, once again, humanly very natural. I mean, you always want to put your queen into the center because it controls so many squares in all of the directions. You don't want to do it early on in the game because it can be attacked in the opening. But here in the late middle game, let's say, this is of course a very powerful piece. Here protecting everything, attacking the b2 pawn. So I thought, what can be wrong about it? But it turns out that my opponent had a huge opportunity here with the move queen to h5, and then knight g6 is coming when I play king to g8. Seems like knight g6 is no longer possible, but he still plays knight to g6 absolutely crazy. I cannot take it because f takes g and then checkmate is unstoppable. So I have to play here rook to f6, but then this knight comes to e5, the queen is attacking my rook, and then, yeah, somehow I have to play g6, and it's all very crazy, but the objective evaluation is not good for me. For some reason, my opponent didn't play queen to h5. Apparently, he was afraid to lose this important b2 pawn, because once it's gone, I have just three connected passers. So he played rook to e2, but this move has a huge disadvantage. First of all, it gives me time, so I immediately played queen to f6, trying to stabilize the position here, and it helped me a lot. After queen h5, I once again did that. By the way, queen h5, the same move that just one move ago was the best one and basically was a way for my opponents to start winning the game. Now it's a mistake. This is how chess is difficult. Because this time I play king g8, this time there is no knight g6 available because I'm just taking here on f5, attacking the queen, white is losing, and that's basically the over of this entire attack, otherwise the pieces are standing there doing absolutely nothing. My opponent played rook d2, apparently with an idea to somehow bring the rook to the 7th rank and create more threats, but I'm just the first one to create a dangerous threat now, and this is the second disadvantage of the move rook to e2, because now this rook on a1 is not protected, and I'm using that fact with the move a3. When I saw it, I mean, I'm already in a kind of a panicking mode. I have here around 35 seconds, but when I saw the move, I'm like, wow, that's great. I'm pinning the rook, I'm attacking the b2 pawn. If you play rook b1 to protect it, then I can just go on with a2, and then that rook would be stuck forever there. That's already a very nice thing. And I also have the c2 pawn that can also go forward. So my opponent played here queen to g4, apparently just hoping for me to take on b2, then he plays rook to b1 and takes the pawn back. But I just started with c4, because the pin is still there, I'm not risking anything, and now I'm threatening to take on b2. My opponent played queen to e4, trying, I don't know, to centralize the queen, but now I'm just taking on b2. I'm attacking that rook, you cannot really ignore that. He played rook g1, not to get into some attacks. If you play rook b1, then I play c3 and then bishop a2. But I anyway play c3, and this is so dangerous, those pawns. Now those are three connected passers that don't have any opponent at all. I mean, this is just incredible. Rook f2. Now I even am able to take the pawn on e6. At this point, I started to play incredibly strong. Like, yes, my opponent is making some mistakes, but I'm using every opportunity to take something away from him. This pawn on e6 was very dangerous, and now I'm removing it. And at this point, it was the first moment I felt like, okay, now I can really win this game. Like, before I was just in a panicking mode, okay, I can attack the pawn, okay, I can take the pawn, but now since I'm taking here, all of his pieces are not really that active, I'm thinking, okay, I can really win this game, and that would be the biggest victory of my entire life. My heart started to go crazy, absolutely crazy. I can't even express those feelings. Anyway, my opponent took on b4, but I thought that's fine, because now this b file is open, and once my rook comes there to support, that would be great. But first, like, if you are playing blitz, you don't have any time. I had 20 seconds at this point. You don't want any of your pieces being hanging. So the bishop was hanging for one move. Thanks to the pin, you cannot take it. Now I decided, let me just improve it. Bishop a2. The great thing is, still there are no checks available, because this bishop is controlling the entire diagonal. That is a very good thing. Otherwise, it's attacking now the b1 square, helping me to promote the pawn. But I don't want to promote it immediately. I want to play rook b8 first to win an entire rook instead of just an exchange. My opponent plays knight f3, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Rook b8, there is nothing you can do as white, even if you are 3000 rated. I mean, this is just a crazy number. Queen to a3, and now I'm promoting a new queen here. My opponent takes, and here I thought that I should be as careful as it's humanly possible with 20 seconds on your clock, because I will not forgive myself if I don't win this game, because I had so many great positions against very strong opponents, but then somehow I spoil it due to time, due to nerve. You know, it's very difficult to hold yourself together. So I thought, okay, let me play carefully here. I'm gonna take with the bishop, And then I'm gonna play c2, and then you never can take that pawn away from me because I'm gonna support it with a rook as well. So that's what happened. King h2, I just play c2. Now I'm ready to bring the rook, but here I decided, okay, the pawn is hanging, I can just take it, I can threat some checks, so let me do that. He played king to h1. I played king to h8, also an interesting moment just to avoid any checks forever. King safety is always a very good thing to have, so the king is absolutely safe, rock solid, so now I'm ready to go all in into the attack. King to h1, king to h8, rook to g1, I played queen to f4, just supporting the pawn even more. Rook c8 is coming, queen to c3, now I even played that with a tempo, played queen back, and now I decided, okay, when the queens are still on the board, as long as they are still on the board, you can always imagine some checkmating attacks. I don't know, the queen and the knight are coming here. I don't need that, right? So all I need to do is exchange the queens, because without the queens on the board, I mean, I can't imagine losing the game. I mean, the end game with an extra rook. If I'm not winning it, then, well, I don't deserve it. So that's all I need. I played queen to b4. My opponent plays queen to c1, and I played queen to b2, just making sure it's not possible to avoid the queen's trade, because if you go away with the queen, I'm playing c1 and I'm winning yet another rook. And if you exchange the queens, then it's going to be simple. At this point, my opponent lost on time, but you can see that it doesn't matter because I was ready just to crush him on the board as well. So the recipe for this successful game was, first, know your stuff in the opening. And once again, 10-day opening master is a huge help, because I have spent so many years to come up with this entire repertoire to make sure it's holistic, like everything fits together, because otherwise you have one opening from there with one type of structures, with one type of positions and ideas you need to understand there, and another opening from a completely different planet which doesn't fit together, and that's crazy. You need to learn so much, you need to understand so much that doesn't work. So I have created this opening repertoire so everything goes together like a big giant puzzle, and you don't confuse yourself, you don't need like hours and hours to learn it. You just understand the main principles and you're good to go. The second step is just maintain some time on your clock, because in the Blitz game it's essential. Every time I go low on time, that was the case against Hikaru Nakamura, I played so good, but without the time on the clock, in the end of the day, I did make a mistake. And thirdly, you don't need to shy away from going forward. Even if you are playing against very strong opponents, you don't want to sit there passively and waiting for them to come and destroy you. No, you want to have your game. Yes, you can lose there because they might be stronger creating their threats. That's okay, but at least you're playing actively, you're learning so much, and sometimes you're rewarded for that, as you could have seen in this game. In this video, I'm showing you how I played exactly this opening against Hikaru Nakamura himself, and what he said about me after our game is unbelievable. Definitely take a look at that.